Good evening, everyone. Adequate notice of this meeting was provided by sending such notice to the Asbury Park Press, the Middletown Patch, the Middletown Township Public School District website, and the posting of such notice at the August T. Minor Administrative Offices and each elementary, middle, and secondary school website in the district. Roll call.
Mrs. Kamenetsky. Mr. Donlin. Mr. Dymo. Mr. Heffernan. Mr. Little. Mrs. Tobacco. Here. Mrs. Wright.
Here.
Mr. Capone.
Here.
Mrs. Minions.
Here. I need a motion to go into executive session for matters of contracts,
So moved.
personnel.
Second.
All in favor?
Sorry, who seconded? Oh, I seconded.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Adequate notice of this meeting was provided by sending such notice to the Asbury Park Press, the Middletown Patch, and the Middletown Township Public School District website, and the posting of such notice at the August T. Minor administrative offices in each elementary, middle, and secondary school website in the district. Roll call.
Mrs. Kennedy, Mr. Donlin, Mr. Dino. I know he's here. Mr. Heffernan,
Here.
Mr. Little,
Here.
Mrs. Tobacco. Here. Mrs. Wright,
Here.
Mr. Capone.
Here.
Mrs. Minnies.
Here. Can we all please rise for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we open the mic up for public comment, we're going to have Mrs. Darty do a brief update.
Good evening, everyone. Mrs. Minnies and Mrs. Walker just asked me to give an update on our buildings and the work that's been going on with the mold testing and the cleaning and how we're going forward. So I just wanted to update everyone. As you all know, all of our buildings were able to open on September 13th. Some buildings had some limitations at that time. During the course of that week, the remaining areas of those buildings were cleared with testing. Any additional air scrubbing had to be done, that was done. So at this point in time, the only areas of the buildings that are not available for use are the NAVSync library. We're doing some additional testing there and waiting for those results. And the Middletown Village Library has been cleared as far as mold testing, but we were, as a result of the work, we ended up taking out the carpet in the library. So we are working on replacing the flooring. And as soon as the flooring is replaced in that library, that will be open as well. As you probably heard, we have also been deploying our dehumidifiers across the district. As we've talked about in previous meetings, the mold issue is a moisture issue. The humidity levels in several of our buildings were high. We have been taking steps to reduce the humidity in the buildings. This time of year is particularly vulnerable to those types of conditions. Until we turn the boilers on in October, it's going to be something that we're going to be having to monitor and stay on top of to make sure that the humidity levels remain at an acceptable level, acceptable and a level that won't generate mold growth. So we have purchased many dehumidifiers for the district. We're using those to support our HVAC system in getting air dehumidified and circulating. We're deploying those in the evenings if we need to. During the day, at some times we're deploying them as well to keep the humidity levels down. We have also been continuing to consult with our environmental consultant. Our environmental consultant is working on a summary report of all of the testing and the work that was done. It will also include recommendations to the district for things that we can do and steps that we can take to keep the air quality and the climate, the moisture levels in the buildings at a good level. We also had been talking to him about the limitations of our current equipment. He is aware of that. We are looking for short-term and long-term solutions on this. We're going to have to figure out ways to manage the buildings with the equipment that we have until we are able to get the equipment replaced. As we were talking about in our facilities committee meeting earlier, last week, even if the best case scenario, if we said tomorrow we're going out and buying all new systems for all the buildings, it takes time to implement that. So that if there's no entertaining the fact that we just switch out the equipment in a couple of months and our problems will be solved. We're going to have to come up with a couple of phased approach to this solution. It's also, as we've been discussing, and we'll actually talk about more when we give our facilities report, it's a large expense, so we are going to have to figure out how to address that as well. But the main purpose of this discussion before the meeting, before we report out on facilities, is just to give an update on, we have gone through the buildings, they have been tested. There's one area we're still looking at, and one area that we're just looking at putting flooring in, and we are continuing to work with our consultant. When that report comes to the district, we will post that on the website, so everybody can review that and look for the information on their particular buildings.
Thank you, Mrs. Doherty. Okay, at this time, we're going to open up for public comment on agenda items only. If anybody would like to speak about the agenda, now's the time. All right, seeing no one at the mic, I'll close the,
Sorry, wait, for the mold.
it's on here, yes.
Okay,
Yes,
you should go up to the, yeah. Yep. Just state your name and your address.
John Holland, 1 Willow Tree Drive.
Is this mic on?
Is this mic on? We can't hear.
Okay.
Maybe if you, oh yeah, just get closer, to push it up to you.
We might be able to turn up the volume on that.
Yeah.
Hello.
Oh, that's
Yes, there you go.
sorry.
Hello, John Holland, 1 Willow Tree Drive, Rosedale Township. I'm here today to just let everyone know that there is another option. that you
There you go.
can- There's another option that you can look at as far as the partnership. And that is a system that we just started to work with. Only less than a month. And what it does is it uses ozone, which has a bad connotation with the Department of Education of New Jersey, but it's because of old-fashioned style ozone generators. But ozone is made from the oxygen molecule. Ozone will be able to kill all bacteria and mold in your system with or without your HVAC system. So there is the main thing that I see happening with the way that most people deal with mold is that they wait for it to get too bad. And then you have to close the schools and deal with everything. The other system that is available is that it's used only at night. And so by the morning, there's absolutely no ozone that's available because it's a ozone, if you don't know, it's a 20 to 30 minute half-life. So by the time in the morning, it can be absolutely no ozone. But within a couple hours, you can eradicate not just mold, but also viruses and bacteria. We have literature for it to show you. But the main difference with our company is that we have specialized sensors that if you wanted to, you could systematically, very closely have a concentrated ozone concentration that's underneath what EPA feels is okay. And that would create a barrier, constant barrier inside. It's equivalent to having ventilation inside your.
Sorry, but I have to cut you. Your time is up. If you would like to speak to us after the meeting and give information to Mrs. Doherty. If you would like to speak to Mrs. Doherty about what you're talking about, you could do that after the meeting.
Sent an email.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Tom, anybody can talk to Mrs. Doherty about anything.
Right, but not us.
Not, I said to Mrs.
Shut up.
Doherty. Excuse me, Tom. Sorry, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Lynn Schaller, 27 Fairview Drive, Middletown. I have a daughter at North, and I got a phone call last night at 9 o'clock at night telling me that I had to quarantine my child for 14 days. I have a huge issue with this. My child does not have COVID. She was in the classroom last Thursday, was the last time my child was in the classroom. She slides out of this classroom and moves into a different classroom. And over a 24-hour period, wouldn't that bring her to being in the classroom on Friday? I was told by the nurse last night that my child had to quarantine from last night, so Tuesday, to bring her to additional 14 days. My child was not in the classroom on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Why is my child being quarantined for 14 days starting yesterday? That's my question.
Yeah, and that's something that, you know, the actual start date of the quarantine is something that you can speak to either the nurse, the principal, or Mr. Kirkpatrick about.
Send an email.
Yeah. But on tonight's agenda, we do have an item where we're proposing making a recommendation to reduce the quarantine from 14 days to a maximum of 10 days, but on day 5 to 7 of your quarantine, you can get your child tested, and if it's negative, they can come back on day 8. Okay, so it can basically cut the quarantine time in half compared to the 14-day quarantine.
So I just want to figure out how I can get my child to go back to being quarantined as of Friday, which is no longer in the classroom. So I think that needs to be.
Yeah, because there's specifics that they have to look into. Okay, so yeah, that's, we don't have the details, but yeah, they will definitely look into it. So Mr. Kirkpatrick will reach out to you tomorrow and talk to you, okay?
And I also wanted to say that I know that you guys are not doing, you know, on school interacting with the teachers, and my daughter did try to sign on today, and the links were all down. So she couldn't get on to a couple of classes. Okay, so we're ready, we're having. I just really hope that we rectify this. My daughter is a senior. She is an IEP student. She had a horrible, horrible 2 years. She failed a subject last year. She needs to have a great year and not off to a good start. I cannot have my child out for 14 days. And I really hope to rectify this problem. Thanks.
Thank you.
Sue Griffin, Monmouth, Middletown. I had some questions regarding the restart. Can you hear me?
No.
You have to pull it closer.
Sorry about that. My name is Sue Griffin. I'm from Monmouth, Middletown. I had a few questions regarding the restart plan. First off, in case of extreme heat, is it possible that we offer an option to parents who have children who are immunocompromised that they can go to a safe location and participate either in asynchronous or synchronized learning to as a compromise? Suggestion. That I hope you investigate. Secondly, and as far as educating quarantine students, the third bullet point mentions a doctor's note detailing the COVID compatible symptoms for virtual learning. Can you walk us through that, what that looks like, how long they need to get that note to be allowed to be online virtually? Right?
Kim, can you respond to that? Since you're most intimate with the
Questions or comments?
just the question about the student that has COVID-like symptoms and provides a doctor's note, the supplemental instruction they'll be, receiving, like, do they have to have the doctor's note first? Well,
The
if they're sick-
doctor's note is just to verify that the student has been told to quarantine by a physician.
Yeah.
If a child is exhibiting symptoms and does not have a doctor's note, they will not be allowed to have supplemental
The building administration would take it on a case-by-case basis.
on a case-by-case basis. Because some of these children, it will take them 3, possibly 4 days to get the note that says, what are we going to do for them as far as learning? For those that.
Again, I would encourage, that's a building level communication, so I would encourage parents to contact the building level administration or the guidance counselor.
And you know what those days will be, absences or absences.
I don't think any of these are excused, right?
No, it's like your child is ill, yeah.
Right. I would encourage you to just look at that. especially if we're requiring a doctor's note. Some of the children, it is easier for them and more financially accessible. Just go to CVS or something like that to get a free test rather than go to their doctor.
Yes, and that will be taken on a case-by-case basis by administration.
All right, thank you very much.
Right?
An agenda item, right?
Pardon?
You're speaking on an agenda item? No, that's for later.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. We're on a special voting meeting right now. All right, seeing no one else at the mic, let's close the public portion and get on to the special voting meeting. We need a motion to approve number 1 under finance, the bill list for Servpro.
So moved.
Comment?
We didn't get a second yet.
Second.
Discussion.
Have we seen the invoice?
I can hear what you're saying.
He wants to know if you've seen the invoice.
I'm sorry,
Have there been any invoices?
the payment that is on the agenda for this evening is a deposit on the work that is being done by Servpro or that has been done, the $175,000. We have received some progress billings. We are in the process of reviewing them. We're also waiting for their certified payrolls to be handed to us before we can make any further payment.
So you're asking us to pay the bill, but you're still in the process of reviewing progress invoices?
No, this is a deposit on the work that's been done. We have, like I said, we have received the progress bill. The progress bill was $560,000. But again, we're not making payment on those invoices until we receive the certified payrolls from Servpro and we're able to review those.
So Amy, I'm sorry, it's 560, including the 175.
I'm sorry.
It's 560, including the 175.
Yes, the 175 would be applied toward the 500.
And the 560 progress, how much do you know how much of the billing you received? Are you close to having all the billing in hand, or is that 560 number range?
The 560,000 was through September 12th. So the majority of our work was done by that time. The buildings opened on the 13th. There was some residual work after that, but the majority of the work was completed by September 12th.
And that includes all the equipment?
That includes the equipment rental through Servpro.
Does that also include the lab testing?
The lab testing and the consultant's fees will be separate from those.
Okay, so that's just served.
This is just Servpro.
Have you received anything to date, Amy, from the consultant for his fees and for testing?
We did receive a progress bill to date from the consultant just the other day. We did not have that at the time we had our finance committee meeting. We haven't been able to review that as well. But the amount of the progress building from RK, our environmental consultant, which includes the lab fees as well, was $152,000.
Or can you say it again, 150,000?
$152,000.
Okay, thank you. 560, 152. Now, another question. So this company, I think it's called Wiley or something. Is that Miles? Is that the same as Servpro?
We had, I'm not sure what you're referring to there, but we did, right, well, okay, we had, that's, I guess that might be their corporate name. You know, Servpro is a franchise, so their own, there's different locations. There's Servpro Tom's River, which did the majority of our work. We also had a little bit of work done by Servpro Eatontown. They would be separate, but again, Servpro is a franchise, so there's different companies that own the various Servpro.
Okay, so then you're saying that the file that's listed on the bill was the name.
Right, so that would be Servpro Tom's River, right?
When you anticipate a bill from Servpro Eatontown?
We have we'll be billed by Servpro of Eatontown for one school, noticing.
And do you expect that bill, that part of 560 or is that only for one bill?
funds. That bill would be separate. They did give us an estimate on that. It was, I think, $36,000 for nursing. That would be separate from Surf Pro Tom's River.
And so we use town and Tom's River, were there any other surf codes?
No,
Surf codes?
no. Tom's River did most of it. Eaton Town just did the one location.
Okay, thank you.
That doesn't include the media.
Could you speak up a little bit, Barry?
The environmental consultant is separate. That's RK. That's what I talked about. That bill plus the lab fees get billed through RK as well. And that invoice to date or estimate to date was $152,000.
And Amy, none of this is covered by your insurance policy, correct?
We have submitted claims to the insurance, but it's going to take a while for us to get a determination of what the coverage is going to be. They will take the report of our consultant. They've done on-site inspections. We are pursuing that vigorously.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. All in favor?
Amy, one more question, if I may. This money that we're going to pay, you're asking us to approve tonight, it's going to come out of capital maintenance, is that correct?
I didn't hear the last.
Where's the money
Capital
coming?
The capital maintenance account?
Oh, well, it would come out of our maintenance budget, not our capital budget, but it would come out of our maintenance budget. And anything that, we did talk about in the finance committee that if needed to, we would have the ability to utilize some of our maintenance reserve to supplement our budget in this area if we need to do that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Need a motion for the facilities, the recommended professional service contract on facilities 1 and 2.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All in
One
favor?
quick question. Are
Sure.
these all the contracts that we had? I see the one that we received from the original Monmouth. Are those fees still the same for the district-wide one?
Right, and I think I responded back to you, Mr. Little, in an email, but that is not, that was the pricing that would be applied to all of the work that Servpro would do. It was awarded under an ed data bid, so went through a bid process. There may have been a reference to Lincroft because when they gave us the original price sheet, we were just working at Lincroft, but that same pricing would apply to all of the work that they would do.
Okay,
And it actually also is applying to what was done through Servpro Eaton Town as well.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? I need a motion for personnel number 1 and 2 and the addendum of number 8.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? One. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, I'd like to end this special voting meeting and go into our workshop meeting. Mary Ellen, did you want to give anything under the superintendent update?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about 2 items that are going to be on the agenda next week. First is the revised calendar to make up the first 3 days that we lost. The plan that is, outlined on the calendar is to use October 11th, which is Columbus Day, that our staff originally had slated as a professional development day with students being out. That will become a regular school day. The same thing with November 11th, Veterans Day. I know that Veterans Day is a very important day, and we will be using that day in school. Our administrating staff and our teachers feel it's very important to have activities so that we can celebrate and learn about what our veterans have done for our country during that day. I honestly think in a way it's better because when students are off, they're just off and they're probably not even thinking about it. And this way they can learn and celebrate together, and it'll be a good experience. And then the last day will be added till the end of the school year. So the spring break, the winter break and the November break are left intact.
Mary Ellen, you're saying that for Veterans Day,
I'm sorry, what's that?
it's kind of ironic we're at the Veterans Fall, the holidays going away. So you're saying all the schools, without a doubt, will be doing some sort of recognition of Veterans Day. I think most of the schools do anyway, but we're saying it'll be across the board. Because I think you're right, it's very important to make sure that happens.
Well, we agree with that. It's very important that that happens.
Are we discussing this now, or is this for later?
This is, well, I guess you can discuss it. I mean, it's my superintendent's update. You'll
Okay.
vote on the calendar next week.
Okay.
These are just items
fine.
that are up for vote next week.
Okay,
But usually, like, we'll do committee reports. These are items that aren't in.
Okay.
committee report, so I'm just talking about it. And then the next item that will be approved, we'll ask to be approved next week, is a requirement by the state that we have an emergency virtual or remote instruction program plan. And that's in the case if there is a state of emergency, whether it's by our local health department or by the state. For some reason, we have to, go to virtual instruction, either a school or the district. We have a plan in place, and that's that plan. This year, you can't just use a virtual day. You can't, at the beginning of the year, we couldn't just use a virtual day for the district. We can't do it for snow days. There has to be either a health emergency or some other emergency declared, like when the flooding happened in West Jersey and North Jersey. Those counties actually had a state of emergency, so they could use it. But we're not able to use it. There's no state of emergency the first couple of days of school. So there would have to be something like that, or the health department would have to say the schools have to close because of some reason for us to be able to use it. So this would be our plan for that. So we really don't anticipate having to use these days, virtual days this year, but in case it does happen, this is the plan.
Mary Ellen, is that a voting item? Contingency plan?
I'm sorry, what?
The contingency plan, is it something that needs to be voted on?
Yes, you'll vote on it next week.
Or voting on it next week?
Yeah, these are items that are just on these. I'm just explaining items to the public that will be on.
I wasn't sure, because sometimes we don't vote on time. So we're gonna.
Yeah, you'll vote on it next week. Yeah, you'll vote on it next week. Okay.
And when have we seen that already? I apologize. Have we seen that?
Has it been uploaded, Kim, the plan?
Amy.
Amy, I'm not sure.
Has
Plan.
the
Emergency plan.
The contingency plan?
The virtual plan.
It would be an attachment, right?
Has it been-
It will be, that's for next week's meeting?
Yeah, for next.
And then it'll be uploaded with the agenda when we do it for next week.
Can we send it out to the board ahead of time, please?
Sure.
Is
this a policy?
Yeah. it's like that.
Are we adopting a policy?
It's a plan. It's a remote instruction plan that we have to do for the state.
And it's a new EO, or where did this come from? It's the first time I'm hearing of it, so I just didn't, I think background. Sorry, this is the first time I've heard of it, so I just didn't know where it came
It's
from.
not an executive order, but it's a requirement by the Department of Health that every school have an emergency virtual or remote education plan.
It's required under chapter 27.
Thank you. Okay.
That's it.
All right, under committees, legislation.
We didn't have any committee meet this month,
Okay, technology, Mr. Stewart, Mike's not here. Have you guys have an update?
The technology committee met last month, 23rd, for the two board meetings. Basically, the meeting was just an update on the work that was completed over the summer. We discussed the Chromebook refresh, how students in grades 5 through 12 will be taking those devices back and forth with them every day to school. Students in grades pre-K through 4 will leave the devices in carts daily. Those carts have been rebuilt so that those devices are easily accessible in the event that they can take on home with them. We were successful in distributing all 9th grade Chromebooks during their professional orientations at each high school. The 5th grade Chromebooks were set up, pre-set up ahead of time and waiting on home rooms for them to
students arrived their first day, they had to take home that day. We discussed the desktop replacements. This summer we replaced 455 PCs for the district that we had some issues with last year. We discussed our Boxlight interactive panel installation. Boxlight interactive panels were ordered the first week of May with the expectation that they'd be delivered and installed last week of June. Unfortunately, part shortages, customs, and logistical delayed them. We actually didn't receive them until the third week of August. Our installers worked late in the evening, and they were able to complete all of them by the 30th. Our technicians will then came in over the next few days and configured them all and had them ready to go for the first day of the students arrived. We performed a number of district server upgrades this summer. While we upgraded servers throughout the year, this summer allows us to greater level of upkeep. So we can bring systems down when the students and staff are in. We upgraded approximately 81 servers, software 81 servers this summer. All the servers are now running version 2016 to 2019. We decommissioned a number of servers, and servers that still servers that are no longer needed. So we've taken them offline. We set up a number of single sign-ons for students and staff. So now all the student textbooks are single sign-on, so they log in Clever if they want to know multiple passwords for multiple applications. We did the same with our staff for absence reporting and things such as that. And finally, we obtained a new electronics recycling vendor. We've used a number of vendors in the past, and this year, the one that we have used, one is start charging for the recycling of our smart boards and CRTs. We found another one that will take any piece of electronics for free, regardless of what that is. Nice part about this recycling company too, it's a nonprofit. All the proceeds go to help train people in technical skills. So you train people on technical skills and try to employ them in the fields of technology, computer commissioning, and
Questions under technology? Thank you. Student services, Deb?
Yep. So we had our monthly meeting of student services on September 15th. School had just started 2 days before on September 13th. So we talked about how the start of the school year was going. One thing we did spend some time on is there have been some transportation issues that have arisen and that continue to be addressed as they're happening. We did talk about the difficulty that we were actually experiencing finding sufficient nursing staff for some of the transportation routes. Unfortunately, trying to actually find nurses that are available in the amount of time that we need them for the buses was a bit of a problem. And so we're continuing to try and resolve that issue as quickly as possible for those students. Something else that we had talked about was S3434 for the compensatory services. We do have several students throughout the district whose teams have determined that they would remain in school for the 2021-22 school year. Even though they have now traditionally aged out, they will now be able to get additional services for this next school year. So we have some students who are taking advantage of that. We quickly talked about the inclusion grant committees that we have been reporting on as a board and administration for over the past year. Just coming back in September after the summer, those inclusion committees at Harmony and also Leonardo had not yet met at that point. They're going to be starting to meet, I think it was later, sometime this month, they're going to start again. And as we have been reporting after a year of them working internally with themselves, they are now at a point to actually have parent representation on those two committees, which is very exciting as that work continues to move on. So there will be further reports on how that's going very soon. We had talked about the need to try and find masks with clear panels for students with special needs or IEPs, especially those who are going and needing speech therapy, to try and actually have those available to the teachers who want them. And so they were on order. I don't know if they have come in, Dr. Tiedemann? They haven't come in yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Okay. They are on order for the teachers who want them, so hopefully they'll be getting in soon to be able to use in those classes. We touched briefly, we did not really talk about this too much, and it's my understanding that there's going to be some reporting on this by the administration at the next month's October board meeting, but we talked about the dynamic learning maps, the assessment that has been given, or was given actually, I think at the end of the last school year. A small percentage of students with disabilities actually participate in the DLM rather than the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment. And so we're going to be hearing more about those scores in the actual overall assessment next month. We did just touch briefly on where we are at in terms of classification rates for the district. We remain at just above 20% in comparison to which the state average is about 15%. And that we've actually had, and I think this has been happening honestly the past couple of years, we had more transfer in students with IUPs for this new school year as well.
Thanks, Deb. Yep. Michelle, did you want to add anything? Any update?
I covered it, but can you come back, Mike? We can't hear it yet.
I think Mrs. Wright covered it. Our post-vacation rate is still, as of yesterday, we have more students with that's a testament to
And that's what we said in committee, that our programs are improving and people really know how good they are and they're moving into Middletown. We had that same situation maybe about 20 years ago. And we had a huge population of people moving in to the point where we had to go and look up their addresses and make sure they were actually residents, because people were really trying to get into our programs. And Michelle, I thank you since you came here. You know, we have really brought things back. So thank you for all your hard work. Yeah.
Debbie, you got rubber transportation issue too. Stories that were pretty rough, right? We see some emails from folks on one child in the program, like still busing is still being messed up. You know,
Yes.
still on school, not being picked up after school. I'm glad you guys can discuss that, and hopefully transportation can figure it out, because that, you know, that was very disturbing and upsetting, you know, information. I know that's not really student services or transportation, but that's critical that gets solved.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think that was a shared, obviously, sentiment on both sides, both for, you know, us as board members as part of that committee, and also the administration, and trying to really solve that one particular problem. And then the other problem too, like we mentioned, you know, is unfortunately the shortage of nursing staff for some of our other students who really need, you know, that dedicated presence on the bus, was creating, you know, some real hardship, unfortunately, for families in the beginning of the school year.
Thank you for these updates. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna go to facilities and finance, and Mrs. Doherty's gonna do that. Mrs. Doherty, when you're done with that part, could you just give us the public a little update on where we are with the shortage of bus drivers and transportation, if you can? Thanks.
So the Facilities and Finance Committee met on September 13th. As we talked about earlier in the meeting, our lead topic was about the update on the test results and the work related to the mold issues. We did go through that at the beginning of the meeting. The only thing that I want to add is that the district, we touched upon that we've been utilizing these dehumidifiers and additional air scrubbers. You know, we have invested some funds in that, approximately $71,000 so far, in buying our own dehumidifiers and additional air scrubbers. But again, as we said, until we can address our HVAC systems in the elementaries with a long-term solution, we're going to have to supplement those with some of these things to help stabilize the moisture in the buildings. We also talked about, and we touched upon this a little bit, talking about the bill, our maintenance and capital reserves, just to update the committee, that we were letting them know that after reducing the balances in those reserves for withdrawals that we included in our 21-22 budget, we did budget to use some of those funds in our budget for this year. even after taking those out, we have 1,367,000 left in our maintenance reserve and about 2.2 million available in capital reserve. So we do have those maintenance reserve funds to draw upon if we need them. Capital reserve would be funds that we would put toward future capital projects in a future budget. So we have those funds available right now. We also talked about every year we have all the fire alarm systems inspected. We did do that process this summer. It was somewhat interrupted by the mold issues. We did some of our inspections earlier in August. So some of them were a bit delayed because of the mold, and we were able to get the company to come back out and complete the inspections before school opened on September 13th. At this time, we are working on addressing some of the things that were indicated in the inspections. So we do have some fire watches going at a few of our buildings, specifically Bayshore, Thompson, and South. We are working on issues in those systems that we hope to have rectified. We will have rectified in the near future, but in the meantime, when the buildings are occupied, we are running the fire watch in those buildings. Additionally, we started talking about the 22-23 capital budget. We also talked about the fact that we do have these ARP ESSER funds available. And we also talked about what our priorities would be, or we started to talk about what our priorities would be for our next budget, for these ESSER funds, and even some potential other financing sources, such as capital leases, referendums, looking at our long-range facilities plan in its totality and picking out things that relate to HVAC and other building envelope important items. We started talking about a few different topics that we could, and a few different projects we could consider, such as we've done a lot of work on our secondary schools with the rooftop units, and we've replaced all of them except where there's still some units at Bayshore that we have not replaced. So one of the things we talked about was perhaps addressing those remaining 17 units on the Bayshore rooftop units, and then having that completed as part of our overall HVAC system. We talked about a project that we've been discussing over the past few years, High School North and a window replacement. We have continued to look at that and update the costs on what that would be. It would be a complete replacement for the whole building, the exterior windows. That project alone is estimated at about $4 million. The Bayshore rooftop units, I'm sorry, I left out there. That cost to finish that up for Bayshore would be $1.9 million. But then, as we alluded to earlier, we referred to earlier, we did have a discussion about, of course, the elementary schools and the mechanical systems there, and talking about what costs were in our long-range facilities plan for each building, and looking at not only the replacement of the classroom units, but also possibly addressing some of the areas in the elementaries that aren't air conditioned, most importantly, the all-purpose rooms. There's some, in our long-range facilities plans, there's some exhaust fans and bathrooms and kitchens and things of that nature that are in there. So just to give the committee an idea of what kind of cost would be involved there, we pulled all those funds out of all those items out of our long-range facilities plan. And just those items alone would have a price tag of over $20 million for all of our 11 elementary schools. So it's something that this committee is going to have to continue to discuss and work toward coming up with a plan on how to approach that. We actually met, this was not part of our committee meeting, but in addition to that, we did have a meeting with our architect today to talk about this topic specifically, and talking about how we could possibly approach it, whether it would be something we would try to do as one bid, one project. Likely we couldn't do that, it's too large, we would have to divide it up. It would likely be done over a period of years. We talked about the potential of trying to do it not in the summertime timeframe, but during the year, so we can spread the work out more. That seems like it would be difficult though, because of the nature of the work in the classrooms and the fact that we don't have a lot of what they call swing space in the schools to put the students when they're doing work in the classroom. So these are all things that are high up on our priority list to talk about and come up with an approach, but it's going to be something that the committee is going to be focusing on in upcoming meetings. Anything that we do, as we said earlier in the meeting, there is a time frame attached to that. It's not something we can get done in a few months' time. If we were going to do something even as large as a referendum for that and other things, that would be, at this point, likely 2 years out, between doing the planning for it, getting approval, going through the process of doing a referendum. So again, that's why we're stressing that we're going to need to come up with some short-term solutions as well as come up with our long-term plan. But again, we're going to continue to talk about this over the next upcoming meetings and start working towards some definite decisions. So I don't know, Mr. Capone, if you want to add anything to that.
Pretty much covered it all. Thank you.
Okay.
And those units, they're what, 20+ year old, right?
The Airedales that we have now, I think are 17 or 18. So right, Mr. Heffernan, close to 20 years. And we did talk to, I should add this, when we were talking with our architect today, we likely would replace with similar type units only because the infrastructure in the buildings would be most adaptable to that. But the units they have now, again, they're about 20 years newer. They do have the ability to come equipped with dehumidification in those units. Our units right now don't have that. We could also do things like bipolar ionization and other types of measures that would help keep the air quality higher. Those could be put in there. Also, importantly, these systems could be, or these units could be interfaced with a control system that would allow the district to make adjustments electronically instead of manually. Right now, to adjust these units, our maintenance staff has to go out to each unit and make manual adjustments. And just to get, just one building alone, like a link farm, that would have over 30 units in that building. So it's very labor intensive to be making these adjustments to set points, to other adjustments that would need to be made to the unit. So all of that could be much more modernized if we had it hooked up to an overall control system that we can, like we do in the secondary schools, and control electronically and also monitor them electronically, that we can get feedback from all the units to see what's going on in each one. That's all we have.
Can we just get a,
Sorry, you did say
get the busing? Yeah.
So as Mrs. Wright started talking about transportation at the beginning of the school year is always a tough thing. This year it's been particularly tough. Last year we didn't really see the full force of the increasing labor shortage in transportation because we were doing less transporting and less people were relying on it. And school was not operating normally. But this year, we've seen an even greater effect on the shortage that every industry seems to be experiencing in staffing. Drivers are very tough for the transportation contractors to get. This has been something that's been happening over the last several years. They've increased the requirements, or they've made the requirements to get a CDL more stringent. It's discouraged people from going and getting their CDL, and the people who do want to get their CDL, they're getting long wait times with motor vehicles to even try to take the test. We're hearing stories about companies recruiting drivers. They schedule to take the test, they get to motor vehicle, they say, sorry, we're booked today, come back next month. It's crazy. It's made it very difficult. We've had routes that vendors have renewed with us, particularly in the non-public area where they renewed it in the spring with us, but now in September, they just are flat out telling us, we can't do this route. We don't have the drivers. We're not going to have the drivers. We can't do it. So I know that CBA is a couple of the routes that we've had that there's been issues with. We've also been working with them to try to, if we can change routes or streamline them more, combine some things, anything we can do to increase the service that we're giving. But the driver shortage is very real. And districts are having issues too. I mean, it's not that if we had our own buses and our own drivers that we could be in any better shape. They're having just the same problems that the contractors are having. And in some ways, we're better off with a contractor because at least they have a pool of drivers that they can pull from other areas if they have to cover something. You know, when you're in district, you have your set staff and that's all you have. So it's really difficult. We're really feeling the effects of the labor shortage at this point. And athletics is another issue. You know, that's something we are dealing with every day, trying to get athletic routes covered. A lot of times contractors won't commit to us ahead of time. We put things out, they say, we might be able to do it, but we don't want to commit to you because we don't know what's going on. It's literally a day-by-day thing at this point. So we've had a lot of meetings about it as a county business administrator group and even on the state level. And there's been a lot of talk about encouraging legislators to get involved. But from what I understand and what I know, it's not really even just a state problem. There are federal regulations driving a lot of this licensing. So you need to really go even beyond New Jersey and get to the federal level for them to make some of these changes. So it's difficult.
Just Amy, if we can give an update on the lead.
Right. So one of the other things that we didn't really, well, I guess we touched upon in our facilities committee was also that over the summer, we had the required testing of our outlets for the lead testing. So all of those results are up on our website. We did explaining in the letter that we put with our results that we actually did above and beyond what we needed to do for the testing. We tested basically all outlets in the schools. The requirement is to test drinking outlets or kitchen sinks that are used for food preparation. So as you can see by looking at our results, we tested a lot, classroom sinks and sinks that aren't used for drinking water. But we wanted to do that. We wanted to be comprehensive. We tested everything. We also did test under the conditions of having many of these outlets are not operating over the last year. So in some cases, we were tapping into outlets that had been dormant and in a way that would capture what we would call like the worst case scenario. But we wanted to see, you know, where the potential issues might be, and we tested everything completely. So we did that. We went through the results. Anything that was an actionable level, if it was a drinking outlet or a kitchen sink that was used for food prep, that was closed off until the maintenance department was able to put in the proper filters to address the issue. Those outlets were retested. They were not opened up unless they were cleared by the retest. Other areas, other sinks that we don't use for drinking, they've been labeled hand washing only, but those will be filtered as well. They were just approached as the second tier. They weren't as important as the drinking outlets, but they are clearly marked hand washing only. And we are going around and filtering those, and those will be retested when that work is complete, so that all of our outlets will be in compliance. So I think that was it.
So what's the cause of the lead again? Pipes, and how often do filters have to be replaced?
The filter, I am not, I know our maintenance department knows how often the filters have to be replaced. I know they do have to be replaced periodically. The testing is done. This is only the second time we've done this testing. It was first required back in 2017, I believe, 16 or 17, and we did it then. The next round of testing was required now, so we've completed that testing. And then we're required to test it. I think it's every 4 years now, but you know, we have the regulations and a complete test we go through to go through all of our outlets again.
So there's a schedule for replacement. I mean, so there's a regular schedule that's monitored and enforced.
Well, a lot, for example, we've replaced a lot of our fountains with bottle filling stations, and they would all have indicators of when the filters would need to be changed. The other outlets, such as fountains and kitchen sinks, would be kept on a regular maintenance schedule with the filters.
Make sure for the water fountains, we just use the water, use the water bottles going forward.
I'm sorry.
In other words, if there's water fountains and whatnot, should we just use that,
We've been really.
Forget them.
We've been working on replacing all of the water fountains with the bottle filling stations. There really aren't.
That's like permanent, that'd be permanent, right?
I'm sorry?
That would be permanently.
Yes, yes.
State policy.
Okay, so the policy committee actually met twice this month. The first time we met, we discussed the current guidelines for contact tracing and quarantine of close contacts. And it was suggested at that meeting that we have a follow-up meeting with our Department of Health, Rich DiBenedetto, and Tony Mercantanti from the township to discuss those guidelines and procedures. At both of those meetings, the possibility was discussed of getting an epidemiologist to consult with the district and the township on contact tracing and quarantine issues and whatever else results from that, including school closures if, God forbid, necessary. We also discussed this month the required policy as per EO 253, which is the school employee vaccination requirement. And that's the policy that was just, the resolution that was just voted on. And that includes, we will be doing end-to-end testing in the district in partnership with the state. The state will be paying for that testing of all school employees. And it will also be offered to any students that request.
Heck, we didn't vote on that one.
Not on
That's,
the safe school.
no, that's,
Sorry, we didn't vote on that yet. I mean,
That's on the
we
agenda.
voted on the other, it's on the agenda, but that was discussed. So the end-to-end testing was discussed. And we discussed other factors of that, including while we implement this testing, what happens if we have school staff that do not provide proof of vaccination or that opt in for the testing. So that's where we're at. Policy.
curriculum, John?
We haven't had a meeting.
But yeah, we just, we'll be scheduling a meeting because we need to go over the spring test result that will be presented next month, so we'll be scheduling a meeting to discuss that. I think Deb already brought up that includes the dynamic learning map. It includes the WIDA for our ESL students, as well as AP results and SAT results from Dr. Kerrigan. But I do just want to add, in addition to the approval for staff professional development over the 150, we did receive today the annual participation agreement with the Monmouth County Arts Ed Center. That's something that we put on for approval from the board every year. That's so that our high school and middle school students who choose to participate in that can do so. There is no cost to the district. All costs are covered by the families of the students who choose to participate. But they just need a participation agreement from the district from which the students come.
And then also some information on the start storm, about the start test, budget, the best, anything you know about that. Anything in general, I know a lot of information out there, anything that you want to highlight.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Yes, I sent out information about Start Strong assessment yesterday. This is the requirements we did not give the NJSLA last spring across the state. It's basically an abridged version of the NJSLA. Students will be assessed on the standards from last school year, grade 4. So fourth graders will take a grade 3 math assessment and a grade 3 language arts assessment. That goes all the way up through grade 10 in ELA, algebra 2 in high school. And for science, they take it in grades 6, 9, and 12. And for each of those grades, they're assessed on all of their science understandings from the previous grade there. So grade 6 would have elementary science, grade 9 would have middle school science, grade 12 would be all high school science. These are designed to be administered during class time. They're about 45 to 60 minutes each. So they'll be given during the students' math class or language arts class or science class. So there's minimal disruption. For more information, I just sent out a communication yesterday. There's also a district assessment hub. Should you want additional resources or information about the assessments, that's all located there.
And those results come back
Instantaneously. So all the
Okay.
questions are multiple choice or select all that applies. Students will know immediately how they did and then feedback will go right to teachers as well. And we will present out on that in November.
And so Dr. Karen, is the plan then based on those test results for those students who need some, I think we're calling it accelerated learning, right? To try and actually help them. So we're going to then determine what those needs are.
Yeah, so we scheduled a reading specialist, math specialist, intervention meeting for right after that, so we can look at all the data together and form our next steps.
Okay.
Okay, shared services?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Menuez. Good evening, everyone. Okay, the township we met with on September 13th, we were speaking about the Port Monmouth feasibility study that we were looking to accomplish. The committee discussed the 2 responses that were received as a result of the RFP. One of them was the Gold Group with a proposed fee of $21,500. The other one was Pinnacle Indoor. Their fee was $32,500. The committee will conduct the interviews with the 2 respondents actually tomorrow, Thursday, the 23rd, and the township will be covering the cost of the feasibility study. The second thing that we spoke about that Jackie actually touched on was hiring a consultant epidemiologist to focus on Middletown Township specific data related to COVID pandemic as it relates to close contacts and quarantines. The township will work on identifying potential candidates for consideration, and we will meet them at that point. That's all.
All right, so, and does anybody have any questions on the review of the draft of the voting meeting for next week? Okay,
Oh, are we the plan today or?
What plan?
Procedures.
You already voted on that.
I'm sorry, John, that was my mistake. I'm sorry. That was my mistake when I was reporting out on policy. I think I said that we
Okay.
we said we voted on the resolution. We actually did vote on the new procedures for quarantine that Mary Ellen discussed.
Okay.
So that we voted on already,
Yeah, yeah,
and
okay,
next
so
week is
sure.
the resolution on the testing.
Thanks.
Sorry about that.
okay, any old business? New business?
I was thinking about, actually, if we could change our meeting for next week, if that's a possibility that we get consensus from the board for next Wednesday, which is available at the VFW.
Date?
29th.
I'm okay with it. Let's the rest of the board.
What are we doing?
He wants to make a, he wants to
I don't know if we
change.
ever got a clear reason why we're here. It's nice one, but can we just maybe clarify why that is?
I think we're here in part because of, obviously, there's a lot of contention about Executive Order 251, the factual premise of which deals with unvaccinated students as being a reason for mask wearing in schools. This is a meeting of the board, obviously, where there is not a predominance of students here. Additionally, it avoids our security people and our local police of being involved in potential altercations. I've been to probably more Board of Ed meetings than anyone in this room, especially over the last couple months. And I've seen potential problems that I've raised directly with the governor's office about almost physical altercations between individuals who are both pro and anti-mask. So being in a location that is legally compliant with all applicable laws serves to benefit everyone.
Household. Bruce Household. Didn't understand the rationale whatsoever.
What?
Sorry, excuse me, Tom?
Didn't understand your rationale at all.
Okay.
If your concern is safety and the potential for somebody to become violent, isn't that just as likely here as it is anywhere else?
I mean, over our last couple meetings, I feel that the sense here was a lot calmer than the last 2 meetings we had at North.
I think that's because of the relocation.
He's missing the point. Tom, you're missing the point.
No, I don't think I am.
You are.
So what's the?
You are actually, and I'd like to elucidate on it.
You don't understand for the life of us why we're sitting here tonight in the VFW instead of in the high school.
Well, Mr. Jaimo, I know the board president spoke to every board member.
Almost everyone. John didn't.
I guess my question was,
Okay.
I was never really given a reason for that. What you just said was not anything near what I've been told. So I'm just wondering if there was an issue. It didn't seem like it was being brought up by many board members, and I'm not sure why you're making a judgment call about some kind of issue.
I don't know what you.
Because I don't see any issues besides the fact that looking at a line, we do have security, you could ask them to please step out. So I guess I'm just not understanding it, and I would appreciate a clearer answer as to why we're doing it. That's all I'm really asking.
I don't understand. I don't know what you were told.
When I'm gonna.
You seem like you're opining a lot on that, and you also have a lot
No,
of things about what happened at North.
Mr. Little, you said you were told something, and what I said doesn't comport with what you were told. I don't know what you were told or by whom.
I was told that we're going to VFW, and somehow you have some sort of analysis done on the violence level or something, or the hostilities in our district, and I don't see that. And all I'm saying is that they get an. So was this a decision made by council?
This was a decision made by the board. Every board member was called and asked about it, and the board president.
I need to speak up. I need to speak
There was
up.
no vote, there was no vote for it.
There was no, but the board president has authority, took a consensus of the board members.
First of all, I don't need you to yell at me.
I'm not yelling.
Council, I'm asking you a question.
I answered the question.
Recommendation.
I answered the question.
Is this based on your recommendation? The yes?
I don't know if it was based on my recommendation. I did recommend it. I did recommend it.
Why are you speaking?
I was asked to respond to your question.
You didn't make even an opinion, or this is not based on your opinion. I'm asking, why are we here? Why are we coming back here again? Do we think there's some sort of issue that the people in our town can't act like civil people? Sure, there's some people that are emotional, and I think when they're asked to quiet down at some point, they did. And I don't think it changes. There's a lot of people who come here and come to the meeting first.
Okay, can I just say something? Because this is when it was approached that we could have our meetings outside of the school. My first thought, and this is what I said to board members that I called. John, you didn't answer my call, so you talked to Frank. We have had a tremendous amount of people at our past board meetings. We had, about 250, we said last month. A lot of people from out of town.
How many?
A lot of people from out of town. I don't know, Tom, I'm not out there shaking your hands and talking to them. But there are groups that were there from out of town. My concern was that we're bringing them into the school buildings. We don't know where they're from, what the numbers are. We know what Middletown's numbers are for COVID. We monitor that all the time. Why bring them into our schools and possibly let them come in contact with any of our employees that can bring that back to our teachers, back to our students? So for me, that's what I sold it on. I thought that was a reasonable thing to do. But more importantly now, we have to go back to, if we go back to a school, which we can, I have no problem wearing a mask, but we're putting our police department in the middle of this because the governor's office, the prosecutor's office sent out a letter that if people come into our building without wearing a mask, our local police department have to come in and deal with that. Is that really what we want to put our police department up to? Because otherwise, and then.
You could have gave that reason beforehand.
John,
you didn't answer
you
my
spoke to me. John, you spoke to me. You spoke to me and this
You
issue
didn't answer
just
my phone
arose.
call,
You
John.
said.
You spoke to me and this issue just arose. Now, I'd like to make one other statement. Other than what's going on right now, this entire meeting to me has been great. Other than what you're bringing up right now.
What I'm saying, I'm hearing various different reasons.
There's a lot of points that aren't being made right, it's you.
Why are you here? Do you think they're violent? You think there's a biker gang or something coming in?
I have to say, I did hear from a few parents that they felt unsafe in high school North Auditorium.
You also heard them say they want to go on Zoom. You didn't care about that.
Right.
No, I'm not ready to go on that. I will not go forward at this point.
All I'm saying is that there should be better reason given. We want to meet wherever in the street, I don't know, wherever, that's fine, but you need to give better reasons and clarity about why we're doing it.
But John, did you not tell Frank that it was okay? That you were in
I
agreement?
said to Frank, we need a clear reason, and I didn't understand his reasoning. He said this for the children.
John, you said to me, it really doesn't matter either way, but why would we do this?
What I said was, like I just said just now, I'll meet anywhere, Frank. Your reasoning doesn't make any sense.
A reason.
No one here is making any sense.
Joan just gave the full reason.
I only gave my reason. This is what I feel, and I believe in that. And I'm just telling you how I felt and how I explained it to my fellow board members when I called. And then after that came the executive order, the letter from the prosecutor.
I mean, just to be clear, that's all I'm saying.
Frank, you did call, and I appreciate you did give me your insights, but they did also say the reasoning didn't make sense. I think your answer was a lot of things didn't make sense.
You said you wanted to, you were very conscious about doing Zoom again is what you wanted to do.
Well, I said, first of all, you said this is for the children's safety.
Mhm.
And I said, well, you're not doing Zoom, so people don't feel safe. I don't, so it's not consistent, we just change
So
locations.
we can't do Zoom, you know why, John? Because if our children aren't offered Zoom, why would we
What do
do?
you mean they're not all?
We can't do Zoom. Our children can't learn Zoom if they have to go home.
I don't understand.
We don't want our children learning virtual. I thought we all made that decision, right?
Correct.
But just because we don't have a virtual.
Us to do Zoom and not the children, they don't even have any opportunity.
None of us have said we want to go back on Zoom. What we
Exactly.
have talked about, what the motion that I asked this board to reconsider back in August was to allow Zoom participation for the public, not just to watch on that camera, but to still be able to interact with us. That's what we're talking about for Zoom.
Now, Deb.
They cannot call in. They cannot
And we
comment.
don't answer questions.
We just answered a question before. We had people in North in July and August talking to us. And we are very selective in terms of who actually gets their answers, their questions answered, if you actually pay attention to what
I
happens.
am correct.
There are people who stand here
I am correct.
meeting after meeting.
Board already
People who
voted on
stand
that,
here
right?
meeting after meeting and ask us questions, and we sit here like we don't know how to speak.
This board
And then
already voted on that, Deb.
certain people come up here and they get their questions answered. It's very interesting how that interaction happens.
I think the comment about Zoom doesn't make sense, and I'll lose orientation. My point is.
You can't even compare those two.
Make your reasonings clear and consistent. That's all I asked for. And I did say, if you want to meet different places, I do think we just need to get clear. That's all I said. But you're right, you did.
I think everybody's answer was pretty clear just now. Mine, Bruce's, and Jones.
Absolutely not. One, there's like three answers. But anyway, let's just leave it. So we're going to meet at VFW. I guess the public has some sort of answer. I'm fine with that.
I don't understand why we can't take what we have right here, right now, and put it in high school.
Because I can't even hear you. I can hear you.
No, excuse me, please no calling out. The whole point that we're trying to change the atmosphere here is that we can get our meetings under control and focus on what we need to focus on, and that's the education of our kids. If this is a place that has a medium where people can come and feel safe wearing masks, come and feel safe not wearing a mask, and we have enough social distancing, then we can start moving on with our business. But calling out and all the way the behaviors of the last couple meetings have been out of control. I couldn't control it. I am not against Zoom, but until we can get our meetings under control and back on track, I won't even reconsider it. That's my personal opinion.
Agreed.
You're not going to consider Zoom?
I'm not going to consider Zoom until we can start having our meetings back to normal, where people can get along with each other, respect each other's opinions, and we can start doing what we need to do. And then I have no problem with it, but I could not control those meetings. I'm blasted all over social media for not controlling, but guess what? I don't think you, Tom, anybody up here could control what went on in High School North the last couple of meetings. I don't
Sure we
think
can.
anybody did.
If we think that it was all of a sudden becoming to a violent level, we have the right to actually stop the meeting.
And the whole point.
We could have done that. We could have done that very easily, Joan. You could have done that as president. You could have controlled the meeting in that respect. If we all of a sudden thought
I could have.
that the meeting at the high school was going to become violent.
Nobody's saying, I'm not saying it came violent. What happened outside, we weren't there.
That's what our council just said, is that one of the reasons as to why we're moving here.
My statement was being mischaracterized. What I said was, I've seen examples of several different board meetings I've been at where people got very contentious. People feel very strongly about this issue, whether to wear masks or not wear masks, or feel safe or not feel safe. So this board chose to have a meeting in a location that complies with the Open Public Meetings Act and complies with all executive orders, and is conducting business as appropriate.
And you know
So I
what?
don't want my statement to be mischaracterized that I expected or anticipated the people of Middletown Township to be violent. And I'm upset a little bit that
my statement is being characterized that way by Mr. Little and, down there.
And Deb, you're right. I could have cut people off and shut the meeting down. But you know what? I usually listen to everybody except for Zoom now that I'm not going to listen to it. I couldn't control what's going on in the audience and what's coming back from Zoom when people can pick up a phone and just start calling in, nasty this way, going after people in the audience, going after the board. We have to have some kind of control. I tried to let people speak. I timed everybody. I tried to keep them to as much time as I could. I don't like cutting people up, and I never have, but it has really gotten to the point where we don't have a choice. I don't have a choice anymore. And I have no problem with Zoom, but we have to get these meetings back under control, and we have to get respect from everybody in this room, and everybody has to respect each other's opinions. And you can't sit there and deny that that has not happened. You can't. So let's move on with the motion. Is everybody okay with moving the meeting to the 29th next week?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposition? The meeting will be here at the VFW. So, any other new business? Old business? Opportunity for the public comment, 30 minutes, 3 minutes each, please. Thank you.
Well, I was at the last meeting, Brian Irwin, 17 Aberdeen Terrace, New Monmouth. I have a question. So what about, it has to do with the hockey game, first of all. So when we get to the hockey games, I know we're at a neutral site. I'm not sure if the mask mandate will be enforced there, or will it be like optional, or are we anticipating the governor to like put an indoor mask mandate by that time?
There is an indoor mask mandate right now at schools, and anywhere that's a school function is considered the school. So yes, it will have to have mask mandate during hockey games. Okay.
All right. And also, second question, this has to do with school security and for you, Superintendent. Are you aware of a social media trend that has been causing issues in other school districts? I'm thinking of the DBS Lake issue.
The one where they're stealing things?
One where they like steal like exit signs, fire hydrants.
We are aware, and we have our security and our staff well aware and monitoring.
All right, and then one last question.
Thank you for letting us know in case we didn't.
Yeah, anytime. Last question is that I noticed that some school buildings have very faded reflection door number signs. Is that going to be replaced anytime soon, or we're gonna, just waiting for the money for that?
No, yes, there is a plan.
All right, that's all I have. I'll yield one time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Sue Griffin, One Holland Road. I'm glad you brought up Port Monmouth. I've had questions about Port Monmouth for a while. I'm glad you're addressing that. Can you please tell me, and I'm not sure if you're going to get back to me or not, one way or another, it's fine. Is Port Monmouth, has that been looked at for mold? And if so, was there any found? Is that included in mold remediation? In the numbers that were given this evening? Any information on that at all?
I don't believe that Port Monmouth was tested.
Okay, and would we have to remediate that to be used in shared services?
I'm not sure that the building is going to be used. I mean, it really depends on what the feasibility company comes back with. If that building will have to come down and a new building go up, it really depends on what they're looking at.
Okay, thank you.
There's no definite.
Thank you. And then one other thing I just wanted to bring up, because everything has been so contentious. We do have a civility policy on the books. Perhaps it's time to look at that civility policy, make it known to the public, because it basically says that everybody attending a Board of Ed meeting should be civil to one another. It's probably long overdue. Because it has been so contentious in our town with the way that board members interact, with the way that the public interacts with board members, with the way the public interacts with the public. It might be time to revisit and start it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a brief, board report.
The last meeting was definitely an embarrassment. I'm honestly at a loss for words of how our community is reacting to this. The personal attacks, the rants on Facebook, the politics, truly pathetic. That is the children that end up suffering because we can't find middle ground. So Governor Murphy says data determines dates, but who is holding him accountable for the data? Middletown has its own health department. Where are they? We have a district physician. Where is he? Last month, we had a school nurse from here in Middletown, president-elect of the New Jersey School Nurses Association. She spent an hour on a Wednesday afternoon talking to Judy Percy-Kelly about vaccines in a Facebook Live. Why aren't these people here to give us the data and the information that's actually happening inside our schools? Why can't any of these people come here and talk to us about what's happening in our town? And why can't we get the answers from the governor as to what data we actually need to have in order to start making things move in the right direction? We have non-medical people making decisions about children wearing masks that are meant to mitigate a public health threat. It doesn't make sense. So regarding the new guidance that came out on August 27th, I just want to point out some of the areas that I believe need some clarification. Another earlier said that there's already some confusion, so there's some things that I thought are potential for confusion as well. A student who is within 3 to 6 feet of an infected student where both the infected student and the exposed student are correctly and consistently wearing masks will not be required to quarantine. Who's going to be determining if a child is consistently and well wearing a mask for the entire time? Other exemptions to quarantine requirements, they have recovered from COVID-19 within 90 days, based on what criteria? Other face mask procedures, please be assured that every student will be treated with kindness and respect. How are you assuring this exactly? And how do you intend on dealing with teachers or staff who are found to be bullying students for improper mask wearing? We know this was an issue last year. I'm praying that it's not an issue this year. Contact tracing, when necessary and with guidance from Middletown Township Health Department. School staff will notify parents and staff of the close contact exposure and exclusion/quarantine requirements while maintaining confidentiality. And then in a separate section, educating quarantine students. Student is identified by district staff as a close contact of a COVID positive individual and placed on quarantine by the district. So my question is it just the district staff or does it have to be in collaboration with the DOH when we're deciding who's going to be quarantined? What is the qualification or the training of the person? That is a staff member that's going to be determining if a child needs to be quarantined, because that person also needs to consider the facts, and I'm quoting here, a student who has been within 3 to 6 feet of the infected student, both wearing masks properly.
Yes, your time's just about up.
Okay. Then a student also having recovered from COVID-19 in the last 90 days. Finally, students with chronic illness, only new symptoms or symptoms worse than baseline should be used for symptom-based exclusion criteria. I just want to make sure that someone with medical decision-making power is making these decisions. Who is exempt because of exposure, who is exempt because of previous COVID, and who's determining if allergies are actually going to be counted as
Thank
symptoms. Thanks.
Excuse me. I just want to say, if you want to read the updated changes in the quarantine policy, they are on the website. Thanks.
Road. So we've seen a lot of rules being broken. I'll say when it comes to mask wearing and policy, I did not feel the need to copy the entire board in on what I've seen, what my children have seen, what's been posted on social media from teachers clearly violating this board's policy in classrooms. I wanted to bring it to your attention because part of the contentiousness, I think, not just here, but throughout the country, is we see people saying things and not doing them. And I think as adults, we can digest that, but children, it's hard to digest that, right? So if my teacher as a 4th or 5th grader is telling me to wear my mask properly and then taking selfies, inside a classroom, inside a school in this district, that's a hard discussion for me to have with my child, knowing how hard that we fought to neutralize the math situation. So it's just more information for this board to know that I have contacted the administration. And I'm not blaming teachers, this is confusing, but just think about how it affects our students when there's rules for thee and not for me.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Laura at 16 Waiting Room. Just real quick, I know the bus is an issue. But my son over the last, it's been 8 days, has had 3 different bus drivers. The bus has been late, inconsistent, whatever, but the last bus driver that we had was very rude. Not nice to children. 4 girls on my street got off the bus crying yesterday. I don't know, I understand these aren't drivers that we hire, but we outsource. You know, the kids have been through a lot. The last thing we need is bus drivers making them cry. You know, the kids form a relationship with their bus drivers. It's that hard for them to say good morning. You shouldn't be yelling at the children. And children certainly shouldn't be getting off the bus crying. So I don't know how we deal with this. I understand there's a shortage. I don't know, where these people are coming from. I did email Ms. Miney about it. But if it's just something that we can, reiterate with the contractors, that we can at least treat the children first, say good morning to them, especially our little ones.
Yeah, we agree. And if someone has an issue, you can email Barbara Vining. You can also call the principal. The principal will talk to the bus drivers when they get there one day and really, let them know what they expect. Okay, that's probably one of the better ways to get, but and then also notify Mrs. Vining.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, seeing no one else at the mic, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meetings. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?